All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys all for joining us today. So today is our third session of SAP, also known as the Social and Academic Preparedness Project. So we will be covering studying techniques and the dimensions of wellness today. Before we get started, my name is Teresa Gu. I am a rising junior at Academy of the Canyons. I am the VP of Education at a nonprofit organization called Math Matters, where we focus on the mathematical skills of students K through 12. I am also the president of a community service organization called Music Magically. In Music Magically, we help students who are learning to play an instrument to gain additional musical experience from more experienced high school musicians. I'm also an ambassador Girl Scout. In all of my roles, my goal is to help people achieve their own goals and meet their own aspirations and become the person that they want to be. I'm also currently pursuing an associate's degree in social sciences, and I'm taking a lot of psychology classes in order to accomplish that.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Claren and I'm also a rising junior at AOC. If you've been in previous SAP sessions, it's kind of just a recap, but I'm the president of the Creative Writing Club at AOC. I'm also the secretary of the Science Club at AOC, and as secretary, I also help to lead our Science Olympiad team. I'm a student ambassador at We Connect the Dots. It's a New York-based STEM organization. We help give workforce experience and introduce tech careers to youth and young adults, specifically minorities. And I also do outreach and media for National Youth Week USA. It is a national organization that promotes mental health to specifically teenagers and high schoolers and promotes healthy discussion about mental health and therapy to high schoolers.
And like always, we like to start our SAP sessions off with a quick question that relates to what we're going to be going over today. So I want to hear from the audience, and how do you guys study for tests? So this can be, you can talk about how you study for quizzes or larger examinations. So you guys can just unmute yourselves, or you guys can type it in the chat box. I know that people like to study for tests in all kinds of ways, and they want to figure out what works best for them. All right, if we have any takers, you guys can type in the chat box, or you guys can just unmute. Personally, I like to go over a lot of previous tests or just passages. It truly depends on my subject and how comfortable I am with the material, and it can really dictate how I study. But it's mainly just going over things that we did before, and sometimes redoing things or rethinking about certain concepts. All right, let's move on to our next section.
So this is where we begin to get into the bulk of today's session, note-taking and study techniques. So if you want to take any notes, this is where you want to start. We're going to cover a variety of techniques, how they're useful, and what methods work best for specific people and what they desire. So make sure to stay tuned.
All right, so we're going to start off with some of our general information. So one of the ways that we can find good study habits is by setting specific times to study. So we might say, oh, we're going to study for maybe 1 or 2 hours on Monday. We're going to study for another 1 or 2 on Tuesday. We set those specific times, and we try our best to stick to them. There's also quite a few ways to study. So you can choose to study alone or to study with others. It's truly up to you as an individual. However, I do know that a lot of people like to combine the two methods so that they transition from group studying into alone studying, or they just transition between the two at their own will. One of the biggest pieces of advice is to study throughout multiple sessions and to not cram all of your material into one study session, because as you go through that one very long session, your focus is actually going to decrease, which means that you're not going to be able to retain your material. So by studying multiple sessions throughout a period of time, you're actually going to be better able to absorb your material and recall it. And while we're studying, we really want to make sure that we're utilizing all of our resources. So one of the things that we can use is by going online, doing a Google search, looking at certain websites, so that we can see, oh, perhaps this is a better way to solve a problem, or, oh, this is a better way to define this specific concept. You can also use a lot of the resources that you have at school. For example, you can ask your teachers questions that you have when you're looking through previous material, or you can ask your teachers to give you a quick recap over things that you guys have learned over a period of time. And one of our final pieces of advice is to study somewhere where there's minimal distractions, because we really want to be focused in what we're learning. We want to remember our material, which means that we can't have a lot of distractions. You typically want to turn off your phone and avoid going on any social media platforms. And for a lot of people, they might want to reduce noise. And for others, they like certain types of noise. Make sure that you work around and figure out what works best for you so that you can do all of your amazing work.
So one way to study is to rework old problems. Since you don't really have like concrete knowledge what may be on your test, the best way to gauge what problems will be on there is to look at previous problems that you've been given through old tests, homework, study guides if they're provided, and worksheets. Personally, I use old worksheets and study guides constantly to study for tests. What I do, because I study throughout multiple sessions, is that I take some of my old homework questions, I work them out on my own, and then I compare the way I worked it out previously versus how I did it now. And then I see what exactly did I do wrong? What did I do differently? And what did I probably do better? And I should probably make an effort to continue when I actually to continue getting better by the time we get to the exam. Another way is to create flashcards. I use flashcards. I use flashcards a lot, specifically when it comes for memorization, because they're tiny and they can fit like a simple word, simple definition, simple formula, simple name. So they're really good for memorization. But when it comes to bulkier questions, like what's the theme of To Kill a Mockingbird or big overarching questions, flashcards don't work for those because those require a deeper understanding, whereas flashcards are better for memorizing concrete facts, like what was the date of World War II or stuff like that. So you want to use flashcards for concrete facts that you need to memorize, small tidbits, not entire overarching ideas.
So I know that a lot of people have gotten a lot of reading assignments in the past. So here we're going to be talking about ways to annotate to make sure that we actually absorb and understand our material. I would like to say that everyone does stuff differently, and different symbols and different colors mean different things to every person. But here are some things that I like to use and different ways that we can do this. So one of the ways people like to annotate is by underlining. This can be very simple as we typically do have a pencil, which makes it super easy to just underline. You might be able to write something next to it. People oftentimes like to underline vocabulary words so that they know where to go back. Other types of symbols people like to use is like circling, where they like to write a box next to the word, well, on top of the word, I guess. You can also highlight important ideas. And you guys can use a variety of colors, and different highlights can mean different things to various people. So I have my own color highlighting system. I use different colors to help me point out certain pieces of the text. So you guys can do whatever you guys prefer. You guys can use as many or as few colors as you want. Just make sure that the method that you use is going to be time efficient for you. And writing summaries in the margins is something that I know a lot of teachers like to capitalize on. Oftentimes after you highlight something, you're like, ooh, that was a very good point. You might want to write something additional in that margin. Maybe something that you want to add on, just like, ooh, this was a good point and it reminds me of this. Or, oh, this is a good point. I want to make sure I put this in something else because I'm going to use it later on. Whatever way you want to use it, it's a great way to remember, oh, why did you highlight something and how can you use it in the future?
So another way to study is to rewrite or take more notes. While yes, you can definitely skim through a bunch of notes to refresh yourself on the information, I find it better to actually rewrite or take more notes because I work better with tactile learning, and therefore if I write something down, I'm more likely to remember it in the future. And also it's a more engaging way to study. Instead of just looking at things and recalling in your brain, it's to write it out is a lot more engaging and makes your brain more stimulated when you study. So there's multiple note-taking techniques that we're about to go over. The first one is outline note-taking. This is probably the most common method because it is very simple. You have your main topic, subtopic, and a little heading, and then you have a bunch of bullet points under that topic to sort all of your notes. Now, this is perfect for recording more information, which is why a lot of people use it. If you have a giant block of text or a giant chapter that you need to read, outline note-taking can record a lot of information in a small amount of space, so a lot of people use it for that. It's also suitable for most subjects, specifically ones that are information heavy, like English and history, where you need to read large sums of text and you need to condense them into a page or two of notes. They can also be easy to review because all of your notes are in one place. They're in one column and going down the page, so you know where all your notes are. But when it comes to finding specifics, that's where outline note taking may have a bit of a downfall, because unless you have specific symbols that you annotate your own notes with, it can be very hard to find specific tidbits of information because everything is sorted under like very broad headers that people usually use. It can also be bad for more practical studies such as math, where you need equations and diagrams. I personally don't use outline note taking for math or science because I need to have diagrams and I need to have more visual things for me to understand the concept rather than just a column of bullet point lists. There's also mind map note taking. It utilizes bubbles to sort notes, placing the title in the center and subheadings branching out from the center. And then from there, you have your individual notes branching out from those topics. I use this method specifically for English, mainly because I'm a visual learner. They're a lot easy for me to identify where each note is and where each topic is and how they relate to one another, which learns to understand connections between topics. It really helps you understand which topics are main, like overarching topics, and which ones may be subtopics of those, and which notes apply to each topic. They're also easy to find specific information because everything is in large bubbles, and therefore if you need to find like a specific note, you have to look at it's easy to find the subject, and then you just look through all your subtopics on the other bubbles, find your right one, and then you just go down that rabbit hole until you find a specific note. However, it can be very time consuming. I don't really take mind map notes in the moment. I kind of do them afterwards after a lecture. If I have a list of outline notes, I kind of organize them into a mind map note afterwards. It requires a lot of concentration because you need to figure out where everything is spaced on the page. If you need to create a new subtopic, if you need to create a new bubble, it's a lot of concentration to sort everything correctly. And it may record less information on the page because if you look at the example, the simple topic like that takes a lot of space, and there's like a lot, and depending on how big your connections are or how small your subtopics are, you may record less information than the note-taking method, well, the outline note-taking method, which is just simple words on a page. And finally, there's the Cornell note-taking method, which is actually preferred by some professors, and some professors may have you write specific Cornell notes instead of any other method. Personally, I don't use it a lot though. It divides your paper into 3 sections: the Q, your questions, your main ideas. Think of the outline note method and like think of this is where your headings are and also questions that you may have. There's also your notes, the main bullet points that you have, and the bottom is your summary and your main ideas and review. What have you taken away from the lecture or the reading? What is the general summary so that you don't have to skim through all your notes to know what you read? It is very organized because everything is in 3 key sections, so you know where to find everything, specifically your questions and your summary. It's easy to review because you have that summary section at the bottom, so you can tell which main concepts are big and need to be remembered. And then you have your questions, which is like, oh, which ones do I not really grasp yet? Which topics do I need to review again? That's why it's good for extracting major ideas and concepts. However, it may take up unnecessary space on the page. The few times I have taken Cornell notes, I don't use the Q or the question section that often. So it takes up like a good third of the page that I could have been used for notes, and I didn't use it enough. So it just a lot of empty space. So again, it may not record as much information as you want. And there's also mixed research on the effectiveness of Cornell note taking. Back when there was a bunch of research in favor of Cornell notes, which is why a lot of professors prefer that you take them in Cornell note taking. But a few research studies actually combat that. So it's really a 50-50 on whether it is effective, but that's for you to decide and see which note taking method is best for you.
That was a lot of good information, Nicole. Thank you so much. So we just went over a lot of different ideas and different ways that we can use to help us learn. So we're going to send a link in the chat box to a document where you guys can do some annotating, you guys can take notes on it so that we can gather as much information from that as possible. You guys have 10 minutes to do this. This is going to be something that we're going to do pretty casually, and we'll let you know when the 10 minutes are about to finish. Once again, the link to the document is in the chat box. You guys are free to create your own copy. All right, so I'm just going to give a reminder that we have 3 minutes left in our short activity, so you guys can continue what you're doing. Once again, you guys can continue trying to using all of these resources and methods to do this after our session is finished. All right, our study activity has come to a close. We hope that you guys enjoyed doing this activity. For everyone who's watching from home, I will attach the link to our chart excerpt in the description. And now we're going to be moving on to our wellness portion of today's session. So today we're going to be looking at the 7 dimensions of wellness. So the 7 dimensions include emotional, physical, social, intellectual, spiritual, environmental, and occupational wellness. So let's get started with emotional wellness first. So a big part of emotional wellness that comes from when we just hear the name, emotional wellness. Of course, we're talking about emotions. So our emotions stem from a lot of things, right? It can be from what someone said to us. It can also be affected by our internal dialogue, as well as a lot of the stressors in our lives. So one of the ways that we can practice emotional wellness is being very aware of our emotions and recognizing them and acknowledging them. So we can see, oh, well, recently I've been getting a lot of stress at school. I've had more homework. I've been getting very stressed. I'm very tired. I'm very fatigued. And by accepting the fact that we are experiencing these emotions, we are actually better able to move forward and say, hey, what can I do to feel more okay with myself? So maybe you want to engage in some new activities. Maybe you want to draw. Maybe you want to go out for a run. Or maybe you just want to talk with friends to relieve yourself of those negative emotions. And this is where a lot of self-love comes into play. So when we're looking at all of our emotions, we want to be very accepting of ourselves and we say, oh, things have happened in the past, things are happening recently that are making me feel this way. And it's okay for me to feel this way. And that is okay. And we can move forward with all of our emotions and a better understanding of ourselves and how we react to certain situations.
Our second dimension of wellness is physical. Now, this obviously means maintaining a good physical health, and the main way to sustain physical wellness is to obviously exercise, whether it be with a sport or just walking outside or taking a short jog. That's one way that we can maintain physical wellness. But a lot of people actually undermine some things about physical wellness that seem very basic, like food, water. A lot of people actually skip breakfast when they're going into school. So that it's very important to actually eat breakfast so that you can stimulate your mind, get some blood flowing to your brain, and so you have enough energy to get through the day. Also, drinking enough water so you can always be hydrated and always have enough energy to get through the day as well. And also, sleep is a big one that a lot of people undermine when it comes to high school because of all of the stressors and all of the extracurriculars, homework, and assignments that people need to get done. A lot of people get a little amounts of sleep when they really should be getting more, because if you need your sleep in order to, one, recharge your energy, but two, if you're studying for a test, sleep actually helps crystallize memories. So if you want to memorize more information, it's good to get a good amount of sleep before a big test or just any class day. So make sure that you are always well fed, well rested, and well hydrated, so that while you're in school, you can focus on your homework and not on how hungry, tired, or dehydrated you are.
Our next section of wellness is our social wellness. So I did touch upon this earlier, how we can use our social circles to help ease our emotional wellness. So in this photo, we see so many people, right? They're all talking, they're eating, they're hanging out together in this big group, and they're at the beach, as we probably infer from this image, right? And this is what optimal social wellness and social activities look like to some people. And maybe that is what is best for you. But for a lot of other people, they prefer one-on-one connections, where they might prefer, listening to someone talk and just something that's a little bit more intimate, a little bit more private. So it's truly up to you on how you decide to, get better with your social wellness. And you can look at a lot of different things. But ultimately, whenever we're looking at social wellness, it's this feeling of community, of belonging to a group of people, feeling welcomed, feeling appreciated. And you can do this in so many different aspects of your life. And that's actually part of our mission here at Cheer. We're building communities across different regions, right? We started out in Northridge, and now we're here in the Santa Clarita Valley. So we're trying to form that community.
Now, our fourth dimension of wellness, spiritual wellness, is a bit more complicated. It specifically deals with self-awareness and being aware of who you are and your identity and how you want to present yourself to the world, as well as what your purpose in life is. It's a very, very broad topic of wellness. So one of the ways we can facilitate spiritual wellness is to spend time alone and meditate regularly, which we covered in our second session of SAP. So if you want to recap on how to meditate and how that can help your spiritual wellness, you can always go back to the second session of SAP, which is on YouTube. But also to be inquisitive and curious and be fully present in everything you do. That's important because you need to be able to identify what you don't know about yourself and what you need to explore about yourself, what you like, what you dislike, what you may be interested in the future, or what has shaped you in the past, to be fully present and be able to understand why you feel like inclined to do things more than other things. Listen with your heart and live by your principles, because spiritual wellness also has to deal with morals, what you see as right and wrong. But of course, morals are a large gray area. Not everything is concrete wrong and concrete right. So it's very important in spiritual wellness to be able to be inquisitive and curious and be able to define where your boundaries are and what things toe the line. Also, allow yourself and those around you the freedom to be who they are, because spiritual wellness, as being largely about self-awareness, you need to be able to accept who you are and what interests you have and not be ashamed of them, because if you're constantly trying to hide who you are, it can be really tiring and can decrease focus and decrease quality of work in general, but also can feel really disheartening and can affect other dimensions of wellness as well. Also, see opportunities for growth in the challenges life brings you and take those opportunities. While no one is a perfect person, everyone can always try to become a better person. And so when you see opportunities for growth and maybe you have a few flaws that you would like to change, always try to grow to become a better person rather than always being stagnant, because who we are always changes based on the experiences we have and based on the people we meet as our life goes on. So always seek those opportunities and always take those challenges and become a better person.
While we're looking at challenges, a big part of intellectual wellness is actually learning new things and facing challenges so that we can cognitively challenge ourselves. So whenever people are doing intellectual wellness, oftentimes they like to engage in a lot of new activities. So some people decide to do more sports to challenge themselves physically and also challenges their mind to see if there is a way we can overcome a specific obstacle. Some people like to read, they like to hear about new ideas and figure out, oh, how does this lie in like the span of the world? And some people might just engage in things like art, and that can let people become more creative and find how they want to do things. And for most people, this actually ends up in people developing hobbies and figuring out, oh, these are things that I prefer. These are things that challenge me in a way that I find a lot of growth and meaning in. Personally, I have done a lot of activities and extracurriculars in my life. And so when I was younger, I actually took art classes. Now I've stopped taking art classes for quite a few years now, but sometimes I like to go back to doing some art, painting, drawing, to kind of ease myself and actually to help me in all of the other areas of wellness. So whenever we're practicing intellectual wellness, we really want to think, is this challenging me? Am I enjoying this? And you can see which ones you like, what activities you want to continue and which activities you find to be less exciting. Our next section of wellness is environmental wellness. So a big part of environmental wellness is being very aware of your environment and actually helping to heal your environment. So for a lot of people, it's placing a lot of care on our environment. People may go towards using metal straws instead of plastic straws. They may try to clean up the earth better. They might connect with certain community groups on how they can protect their environment and everything around them. And a lot of people are very curious about endangered species and all of these things that are scientific and environmental. Here at Cheer, we currently have our trail cleaning group where we will clean up different roadways from time to time and make sure that our community is a little bit cleaner and healthier.
And our last dimension of wellness is occupational. This really deals with future and where you want to be in career-wise. So the first tip we have is explore a variety of career options. In order to attain occupational wellness, you need to know what careers interest you, what careers you may fit well in, and what careers you generally don't want to be in. So it's always important to explore a variety of career options because you don't know about a lot of careers until you either learn about them, study them, or in practicality. Maybe you think you want to be something, but then you try it in practicality and it really doesn't fit. So it's always important to backtrack and always explore more options in order to find the correct fit for you. It's also important to create a vision for your future because once you find a correct fit and a career that you might want to pursue, you need to plan out how you will get there and which schools you want to go to and how you're going to make that plan to get to where you want to be in life. But most importantly, choose a career that suits your personality, interests, and talents. The most important part of occupational wellness is to be happy in your occupation. Make sure the occupation that you settle in is something that you're genuinely interested in, you genuinely want to do. And obviously not everyone could be happy every day at work, but just something that generally you feel good doing and hopefully get something out of in the end. Also, be open to change and learn new skills. Then throughout your life, you're probably going to be introduced to a bunch of different careers, whether it be someone recommending career to you or a program that recommends a career to you. And at first glance, you might not exactly align with that career. You might not exactly feel like you would fit in that career, but always be open to change and be open to try it out and see if it really does fit you and always learn new skills because while yes, you might not fit something right now, maybe as you grow and change as a person, as we discussed in spiritual wellness, as you go on in your life, you may be able to think differently of that career and may want to learn new skills in order to go down that path. So that's important with occupational wellness as well. And that's it for today's SAP session. We hold our SAP meetings from 2 to 3 p.m. on Fridays, so we'll be back on next Friday, so make sure to attend that as well. But for now, that is all for our SAP session on note-taking, study tactics, and 7 dimensions of wellness. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for attending.